Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be dissecting the Dyatlov Pass incident. It's a case where every single piece of evidence just seems to contradict the last, leaving us with this, truly impenetrable and deeply disturbing Soviet-era mystery.
It really is. And this is so much more than just some historical footnote. It's a case that has captured the global imagination for decades, really, because of its pure absurdity.
Absolutely.
Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We need to go through the source material, the forensic reports, police files, testimonies, and try to understand why this one incident, involving 9 experienced trekkers who all died on Kholat Syakhl in February 1959, remains officially unsolved.
And highly classified.
And highly classified, defying every rational explanation we have.
And that's the core tension, isn't it? The thing you have to hold on to. We're talking late January 1959, the leader, Igor Dyatlov, he sets out with his group of experts.
Right.
They weren't amateurs. This was a category 3 route, the most difficult one available in Soviet mountaineering.
The absolute peak of difficulty.
So they were trained, they were prepared, they were kitted out for extreme adversity. So the question is, if these are experts ready for the worst, how could they all die under such impossible catastrophic circumstances?
It's that experience level that makes the initial findings so shocking. The last diary entries, they describe a group in really high spirits. They're setting up camp below a mountain that the local Mansi people call Kholat Syakhl.
Which means dead mountain.
Exactly, dead mountain. So everything was normal until suddenly it wasn't. Something went profoundly and immediately wrong during the night of February 1st or 2nd.
And the first sign of that? Well, it wasn't discovered until February 26th, almost a month later. The search party finally locates the tent half buried in snow.
And they didn't even have to dig to see the first and maybe the most important clue.
Which was the tent itself.
The tent itself. It hadn't been unzipped. It hadn't been, ripped apart by a storm or an animal. The sources all confirmed the tent had been inexplicably sliced open.
From the inside.
From the inside, with a knife. This was an intentional, desperate act. It tells you the threat was so immediate that they chose to shred their only shelter rather than spend one extra second trying to fumble with a zipper.
And the conditions they fled into, they were instantly lethal.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about an altitude where the wind chill drops temperatures to, what, minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit?
Minus 30, maybe even lower. And all 9 of them fled that tent, leaving behind everything. Their winter coats, their boots, their food, even the axes they'd need for firewood.
The urgency is it's staggering.
It is. The footprints were all there in the snow, and they were not the footprints of prepared hikers. The prints showed they were wearing, only socks or maybe one shoe.
And some were completely barefoot.
Several were recorded as completely barefoot in deep snow. This wasn't a strategic retreat. It was a panicked, desperate flight downhill, away from whatever was in or right outside that tent.
They fled about 500 meters down the slope, looking for cover. The first 2 bodies, they were found near a large, lone cedar tree.
And they were found stripped down almost to their underwear.
So strange.
There were signs of a small fire, and the branches had been broken off the tree up to 15 feet high. You can just picture them desperately trying to get wood.
So they flee, they find some temporary cover, and then what? They just freeze.
Well, it suggests the onset of hypothermia, but also this moment of just heartbreaking clarity. Hypothermia can cause something called paradoxical undressing.
Right, where you feel hot even though you're freezing.
Exactly. But it also suggests they knew the fire was their only hope. They were found partially stripped because they were probably using their own clothes piece by piece, trying to feed that tiny failing fire.
Wow.
And then 3 more bodies were found, stretched out between the cedar tree and the tent. It's like they were trying to fight their way back up the mountain.
A final, desperate realization.
I think so. The real killer wasn't whatever drove them out, but the cold itself. And the only salvation was the gear they'd left behind.
It just speaks to such profound terror and confusion. But the simple hypothermia theory, which, did kill 6 of them.
It completely breaks down.
It completely breaks down when you get to the autopsy reports for the final 4 bodies, which were found months later in a ravine.
Absolutely. While 6 of them died of hypothermia, the other 3, the ones in the ravine, they sustained trauma so severe, the official Soviet report could only attribute it to a compelling natural force.
Let's get into those specific injuries, because this is where the story becomes truly horrifying.
It really does.
We know Nikolai Tubobrinyol had a fatal skull fracture, so bad that bone fragments were literally driven into his brain.
And then you have Semyon Zolotaryov and Lyudmila Dubinina. Massive chest fractures, multiple broken ribs, severe internal bleeding.
But the thing here, the detail that drives the whole mystery, is the mechanism of injury, right? The source documents say these injuries were like being hit by a car.
Like being hit by a car at high speed. However, and this is the key, they were accompanied by no external trauma, no bruising on the skin.
That's the crucial aha detail, isn't it? If you get hit by a car, you bruise. If you fall down a ravine and break your ribs, you're going to have marks on your skin.
Of course.
So why were their insides crushed with nothing to show for it on the outside?
This suggests they were crushed by some kind of immense uniform pressure that just bypassed the skin. Think of it less like a direct punch and more like a massive instantaneous compression.
A blast wave.
A blast wave, maybe, or some other rapid, overwhelming non-contact force. The skin is flexible, but the rib cage and the skull are not, so the pressure wave shatters the bones inward without ever marking the outside.
That pressure analysis, it really starts to steer us away from simple accidents. But the injuries on those bodies in the ravine get even stranger.
Oh, much stranger. We now enter the realm of, well, truly inexplicable mutilations. The soft tissue damage is probably the hardest thing to explain in this entire case.
So we're talking about Semyon Zolotaryov,
Yeah.
found with his eyeballs missing, and Lyudmila Dubinina, found with her tongue and the muscles of her mouth floor completely removed. This wasn't just scavenging by animals, was it?
The medical examiner really struggled with this. When you connect it to the bigger picture, the analysis of Dubinina's body showed a significant amount of blood in her stomach.
Which means
That forensic detail strongly suggests the injury happened while she was still alive or immediately after she died, before her circulatory system shut down.
oh my God.
And while, sure, the stream they were found in could explain some decay later on, the sheer selective nature of what was missing is just profoundly unsettling.
And just when you think you've landed on some terrifying theory, we have to introduce the second great anomaly.
The radiation.
The radiation. Forensic analysis showed significant, unexplained levels of radioactive contamination on some of their clothes.
Specifically, a sweater and a pair of trousers. And we need to get a bit technical here. The dosimetric measurements showed radioactivity up to 9,900 beta particle decays per minute.
Which raises the question for you listening at home. Is that enough to kill them?
And the sources are clear on this. This was contamination. It was residue on the surface of the clothing. It was not an acute lethal dose that would cause radiation sickness or explain the blunt force trauma.
So it means they came into contact with radioactive dust or fallout, but the radiation didn't directly kill them.
Exactly. It's just more evidence. It proves contact with something highly unusual that has no business being in the remote Ural wilderness.
Unless you introduce military activity.
Unless you introduce military testing. So now you have a crushed tent, a barefoot flight, catastrophic internal pressure injuries, missing soft tissue, and unexplained radioactive residue. It's a mountain of evidence that just doesn't fit together.
So now we have to turn to the theories that try to connect all of it. The injuries, the flight, the radiation.
Okay, let's start with the most plausible natural one, the one that's gained some traction again recently, the avalanche theory.
Right.
The idea here is that a rare kind of slab avalanche, a thick, uniform sheet of snow, slid down and crushed the tent.
And that does make some sense. A heavy snow slab could explain the blunt force injuries without the external bruising.
Yes, and it would explain the immediate panic, why they cut their way out instead of risking the tent collapsing on them.
So that's the pro side.
That's the pro side. The con side, though, is pretty substantial. First, experienced hikers, once they're clear of a small avalanche, they go back for their coats and boots. They just do.
Of course.
Second, the investigators noted that there was no typical avalanche debris. The snow around the tent was mostly undisturbed. And most importantly, it completely fails to explain the radiation.
Or the missing tongue.
Or the missing tongue. It just doesn't cover all the bases.
So it feels like we have to pivot to a source of energy that can explain the pressure wave, the panic, and the radiation all at once.
Which brings us to the KGB military testing theory. This one suggests that the group accidentally stumbled onto a secret Soviet military test, a weapon designed to create a massive pressure wave.
This theory provides a much more holistic explanation, doesn't it? A sudden detonation, maybe a parachute mine or some experimental rocket.
It would create those catastrophic, non-bruising internal injuries. It explains the instantaneous panic. It provides a source for the trace radiation on the clothes, and it absolutely explains why the Soviet government kept the whole investigation secret.
And closed the area for 3 years. The secrecy is a key part of it.
It's an inherent part of the military model.
And there's even supporting evidence in the source notes. Other hikers in the area reported seeing glowing orange spheres in the sky around that time.
Which could easily be interpreted as military tests, couldn't they? It creates a very powerful narrative. But we have to pause here. Isn't the KGB explanation just a bit too convenient? The easy answer that lumps all the weird evidence together?
Well, that's the challenge. It's easy to call it a conspiracy, but what natural force explains all 5 factors at once? The sudden panic, the flight, the uniform pressure injuries, the radiation residue, and the government lockdown.
It covers too many bases to be dismissed out of hand.
It really does.
The fact that the physical evidence, the pressure injuries, the secrecy aligns so perfectly with a blast scenario means you have to take it seriously. And beyond these 2 main contenders, you get the fringe theories.
Which mostly rely on that one piece of evidence, the glowing orbs.
Of course. Which led some to say aliens or UFOs, an attack by some non-human technology.
And there was a Yeti theory for a while.
Which sounds ridiculous, but was initially supported by the sheer severity of the injuries, until, investigators realized the damage was internal, not from claws, and they confirmed there were no non-human footprints anywhere. Just the 9 hikers. Nothing else.
It's just one of the most frustrating puzzles. The evidence is so precise and yet so contradictory. You're left with this stack of impossible facts. A slashed tent, a barefoot escape into the cold, catastrophic internal injuries with no external marks, missing eyes and a tongue, and radioactive clothes.
And the official Soviet investigation gave us that infuriatingly vague conclusion. The hikers died as a result of a compelling natural force.
A phrase that just serves to obscure everything.
It clarifies nothing. The file was closed, classified immediately, and the area was declared off-limits for 3 years. That official secrecy almost confirms that whether the event was natural or man-made, the government was determined to bury the truth.
And that's what makes this case so persistent, even today. It's a puzzle where all the conventional explanations just fall profoundly short. So when you look at all the facts, the pressure injuries, the radiation, the desperate flight, what scenario does the evidence seem to point to most strongly for you?
That really is the question you have to answer for yourself when you step back from all this. If the evidence points to catastrophic internal injuries from an immense uniform pressure wave is the most terrifying explanation, something natural and unavoidable, like a freak weather event we've never seen before. Or is it something man-made and deliberately hidden by a powerful, unaccountable government? The fear of the unknown, whether it's a natural phenomenon or a manufactured horror, that's what truly defines the tragedy at Dyatlov Pass.